In a wheelchair, an old man wearing a felt hat clutched his medical insurance card while grumbling at the middle-aged man holding the wheelchair. Why isn't it my turn yet? Even my old bones have to wait in line. It's killing me. Take me home, I'm done seeing doctors anyway. They're all just a bunch of quacks. Following the signs on the fourth floor of the orthopedics department, Jinhuan found the queuing and number calling area. It wasn't until the end of the long corridor that she saw patients of all kinds. Playing the age card, Jinhuan muttered under her breath, her eyes quickly sweeping past the scowling old man as she took a seat in the last row. Next to her, a child with a cast on his arm was nestled in his father's embrace, watching Boonie Bears on a phone. Feeling alone, Jinhuan was suddenly touched when she received a caring phone call. She replied softly, "No need, senior. I booked an expert appointment. The doctor should be reliable. There's no need to trouble your friend specially." "It's no trouble at all. Since you've already booked an expert appointment, just go to room 416 later and ask for Tao Tao. I've already informed Tao Tao. If you really feel bad about it, you can treat me to a meal when I'm back from my business trip. Perhaps it's hard for girls to resist someone they like." Even though she disliked troubling others, when her senior insisted, she didn't refuse again. But her senior kept calling the doctor Tao Tao so affectionately. Jinhuan thought sorely that Tao Tao was probably a female doctor, and from the sound of the name, a very gentle one at that. 20 minutes later, she knocked on the door of room 416 and hesitantly peered inside. "Hello, I'm looking for Tao Tao." A female doctor in a white coat was examining a patient's arm when she suddenly heard the voice at the door. Thinking she had misheard, she glanced toward the sink on the right side of the door. "Tao Tao?" The female doctor's meaningful tone made Jinhuan's heart skip a beat. "You're not Dr. Tao Tao." Her senior hadn't clarified whether Dr. Tao Tao's surname was Tao or if Tao Tao was actually their name. An eerie silence fell over the room. The door was wide open, blocking Jinhuan's view. The sound of running water from the faucet abruptly stopped, and then a tall figure appeared before her, almost oppressively. The sense of oppression came not only from the height difference but also from the male doctor's scrutinizing gaze. "Come in." The female doctor comfortingly patted the child's head. Seeing Jinhuan's awkwardness under Dr. Tao's imposing presence, she kindly explained, "I'm an intern. The one who just called you in is Dr. Tao. But doctor-patient relationships are sensitive. It is best not to be too familiar if you don't know each other well. You might not know, but Tao Tao is the exclusive affectionate nickname Dr. Tao's wife uses for him." Tao King's hand paused over the mouse. He felt the need to clarify, "I'm not married." "Oh, right. It must be what your future wife will call you." Tao Kin couldn't be bothered to explain further. He picked up his cup, took a sip of water, and then pointed to the stool opposite him with his index finger, signaling for Jinhuan to sit down. She was here to see a doctor, after all. To outsiders, it seemed like he was tacitly accepting the explanation. Realizing she had unintentionally taken liberties with the male doctor, Jinhuan carefully perched on the very edge of the stool, ready to defend herself. After all, it was her senior who had told her to ask for Tao Tao. She definitely hadn't meant any disrespect. Jinhuan cleared her throat. Tao Tao. Tao Kin glanced up at her. "Still calling me that? What the heck? Not even allowed to speak now?" Jinhuan's face flushed bright red. Since she was here, she might as well make the best of it. Now that she was in Dr. Tao's office, Jinhuan defined herself as a patient and honestly explained her situation. "Hello, Dr. Tao. I fell last week and hurt my leg." Tao Kin raised an eyebrow in confusion. "Weren't you said to have a fracture? You don't look like it. Did my senior say that?" Jinhuan hurriedly denied it. "No fracture, just knee pain. I thought it was a minor issue at first, but it's been hurting for a week. I was afraid I might have injured a bone, so I came to the hospital to get it checked." Tao Kin nodded to indicate he understood, then moved his chair closer. "Let me check your knees. Both legs are bruised, and the right one is worse." For convenience during the examination, Jinhuan had deliberately worn a skirt instead of pants. At Dr. Tao's request, she started to lift her long skirt above her knees. Tao Kin glanced at the little boy in the office who was there for a follow-up on his arm, as well as the boy's guardian, an adult man. Noticing the men's wondering gaze, Tao Kin stopped Jinhuan. "Go inside the partition screen and lift your skirt there." Behind the screen was a simple setup. An empty table and a bed with neatly spread white sheets, free of obvious wrinkles. Jinhuan walked straight to the bed, sat down, and bent her knees, resting her legs on the edge of the bed. When Tao Kin entered, the first thing he saw were two slender calves, their owner clearly too nervous to even breathe properly. Tao Kin said, "Relax. There were no obvious scratches or broken skin on her legs, but both knees were covered in blue and purple bruises, resembling the marks left by a child after a playful fall. When Tao Qing's long, jade-like fingers touched Jinhuan's knee, she flinched as if shocked. "Did you fall down the stairs?" "Be gentle, Dr. Tao," Jinhuan hissed in pain. "I'm a dance teacher. I was taking our school's young students to an event, and I tripped over a bundle of wires on the floor while rushing backstage to meet them after their performance." She looked up at Tao Qin and added, "The backstage was narrow and dimly lit. I couldn't see clearly while running, so I fell." "Why were you in such a hurry?" Judging by the state of her knees, it was clear she had tripped, fallen forward, and then slid along the floor for a distance. Jinhuan answered sincerely, "I was watching their performance from behind the curtain, and they did so well. I wanted to be the first to meet them when they came off stage." Tao Qin gently pressed around her knee. "Does it hurt here?" Jinhuan nodded like a little chick. Yes, it hurts. It doesn't hurt if I don't move it, but it hurts when I do." Tao Qin fell silent, and the partition grew particularly quiet. The sounds from outside were clearly audible, the intern doctor asking, "Does your arm still hurt?" A child's childish voice followed. "No, it doesn't hurt. I'm not a 2 or 3-year-old kid. I won't cry over a little pain." Seeing Jinhuan bury her head silently, Tao Qin asked with a slight smile, "Doesn't hurt anymore?" Jinhuan originally wanted to bravely nod and say it didn't hurt, but after a moment of thought, she lifted her head and honestly shook it. It really did hurt, but not crying out was her last bit of stubbornness. Tao Qin suddenly smiled. When some people smile, if you can't see the lower half of their face covered by a mask, the smile seems hidden. But even with a mask on, some people's eyes still laugh. Jinhuan was stunned, so a man's eyes could be this beautiful too. When he smiled, the corners of his eyes curved gently, like a clear breeze after rain, instantly melting away the icy aura around him. For a moment, Jinhuan, who had never been one to obsess over appearances, was utterly captivated. Tao Qin removed his gloves. "You took quite a fall. Go get an X-ray later to check for any joint misalignment," Jinhuan absent-mindedly replied. "Oh, inappropriately." She found herself thinking that she had just seen spring reflected in Dr. Tao's eyes. Wee woo. An ambulance turned into the main entrance of the city hospital. Jinhuan slowly trailed behind it. Here she was again less than 2 months after her last leg injury. She was making her second trip to the hospital. As for why she didn't go to a smaller, closer hospital at this late hour but instead traveled halfway across the district to come here, she had an explanation for herself. The reason, of course, was that this was a top-tier hospital. When she stepped into the outpatient hall and saw a few male doctors in white coats, a figure gradually grew clear in her mind. Shifting from blurry to distinct, there was another reason. The doctors here were also very reliable. It was already 8 p.m. when she registered for emergency care. The hospital's infusion hall was packed with the elderly, the weak, the sick, and children. The elderly groaned, and the young children cried. Jinhuan walked around with her seat number in hand. Seat 88 had a large canvas bag on it, its open mouth revealing tissues, a baby bottle, and a half-eaten banana. A woman in the next seat exclaimed, "Why is the baby's head swollen? Honey, go get a doctor, see if the needle moved." Jinhuan crumpled the seat number slip into a ball, stuffed it into her pocket, then went to the pharmacy to pick up her medicine and brought it to the nurse's station. 2 nurses on duty were rushing around busily. They took the medicine and placed it on the table. "Go take a seat first." Jinhuan leaned over the counter and asked, "Are there any beds available?" The nurse grew impatient. No. How could there be beds at this hour? Oh. The nurse's temper was even fiercer than the doctor's. Jinhuan. In the chaotic hospital hall, Jinhuan's ears somehow managed to accurately pick up the sound of footsteps approaching her. She straightened up to turn around but first heard a voice that was both unfamiliar and familiar. "Dr. Tao, what are you doing here?" Jinhuan was pleasantly surprised, her eyes lighting up. Tao Qin stood tall and straight in his white coat, a stark contrast to Jinhuan, who was hunched over beside him. "I came to the pharmacy to pick up some medicine. I passed by the nurse's station and saw you. At this late hour, I thought I might have mistaken you for someone else." For some reason, after dragging her exhausted body around until now, Jinhuan suddenly felt much more at ease. "My leg is fine. I came to the hospital today because of stomach cramps." "How coincidental to run into you so late, Dr. Tao," Tao Qin bent down slightly and spoke to the nurses inside the nurses' station. Could you please arrange a bed for her as soon as possible? He had overheard her earlier conversation with the nurse. Although he spoke to the nurse gently and politely, Fu Jinhuan inexplicably felt a comforting sense of support. The nurse's lips slowly curved into a professional smile, and her attitude toward Fu Jinhuan did a complete 180-degree turn. Oh, so you're Dr. Tao's friend. Let me check right away if there are any newly available beds. Lying in bed, Fu Jinhuan marveled at the surreal experience of her overnight hospital visit. A nurse came in carrying an 4-drip, placed it on the bedside table, and took Fu Jinhuan's wrist to find a vein. Tao Qin, now in casual clothes, strode into the infusion room and interrupted the nurse. He asked Fu Jinhuan, "What did the gastroenterologist say?" Fu Jinhuan answered honestly, "I registered at the emergency nurses station, and they arranged for me to see a doctor. The doctor checked my pulse. Didn't say much, just prescribed medicine, and told me to go to the pharmacy to pick it up for an 4-drip. Tao Qin picked up the prescription slip from the table and scrutinized it from top to bottom. Then he instructed Fu Jinhuan, "Lift your clothes." Last time, it was her skirt. This time, it was her clothes. Blushing, Fu Jinhuan shyly lifted her clothes to show Tao Qin her originally pale face tinged with a faint pink. Fortunately, the infusion room had only 4 beds, and Fu Jinhuan was in the innermost one. Tao Qin and the nurse effectively blocked the view from the doorway and the other beds. Tao Qin pressed around her abdomen with his hands. Around the navel is the small intestine. A bit higher is the stomach. Where exactly do you feel uncomfortable? Everywhere hurts, Fu Jinhuan whispered, sounding like a tiny mosquito. Hearing this, Tao Qin looked at her face. Her delicate features were now scrunched up like a bun, and her watery eyes blinked repeatedly. He had probably pressed too hard and hurt her. His gaze drifted downward, and her snow-white skin became particularly eye-catching, especially since her clothes, pushed up below her chest, didn't quite cover everything, revealing a corner of her underwear. Tao Qin, put your clothes down. The sudden firmness caught Fu Jinhuan off guard, and she obediently tugged her clothes back down. Tao Qing's tone softened. I'll go find the gastroenterologist to change your medication. The medicine you were prescribed isn't very effective. Fu Jinhuan stared straight at Tao Qin, feeling too embarrassed to speak up. She was thirsty and wanted some hot water. Tao Qin, however, was thinking, she looks like such an obedient, honest girl, yet she wears lace. The southern city was shrouded in drizzle, and dark clouds hid the sun for a week. Just as the weather seemed to clear up before she left home, Fu Jinhuan rode her electric scooter to school, only for the rain to start pattering down along the way. In a less than cheerful mood, Fu Jinhuan received a call from her senior, Zhou Shiwan, in the dance practice room. Jinhuan, do you have time to go out for a meal this weekend? I have classes on the weekend, Fu Jinhuan replied listlessly, leaning against a mirror. In the past, she might have eagerly agreed, but now she instinctively refused. Perhaps it was because her senior's casual, somewhat flippant tone made her uncomfortable. Zhou Shiwan expressed regret. I was hoping to give you a chance to thank Tao Tao in person. You know, Dr. Tao Qin, whom I recommended to you some time ago. Dr. Tao will be there too. Fu Jinhuan straightened up immediately. Not noticing the change in Fu Jinhuan's tone, Zhou Shiwan tried to persuade her. Tao Qin might seem cold and heartless, but he did treat your leg. For my sake, have a meal together. So on a weekend under clear skies, Fu Jinhuan followed Zhou Shiwan to a small Western-style house and knocked on Tao Qing's door. Her senior hadn't mentioned beforehand that the gathering wouldn't be at a restaurant. Had she known they'd be coming to Dr. Tao's home, would she have refused? No, she would still have come, but she could have brought something as a gesture. The door opened, and Zhou Shiwan complained about Tao Qin taking so long to answer, then walked right in with an air of entitlement. Tao Qin led Fu Jinhuan inside. Compared to the previous 2 times when she had tiptoed around him, today she seemed much more at ease. Are you afraid of doctors? Fu Jinhuan gasped in surprise, then slowed her steps awkwardly. You noticed? I am actually a bit intimidated by doctors in white coats. I was often sick as a child and had to get injections at the hospital frequently. Whenever I didn't eat properly, my mom would scare me, saying she'd give me to the doctors to get shots in my bottom every day. Tao Qin put his hands in his pockets. Chi. That was pure slander against medical staff. Doctors aren't Rong Momo, a cruel character from My Fair Princess known for using needles. Dr. Tao, Who are those two young ladies? Fu Jinhuan tilted her head, observing the scene in the living room where one man faced two women. Zhou Xiyuan had already joined the fray as soon as he arrived. The short-haired woman closest to him had a spirited, heroic air. The two of them sat directly on the floor. About a meter away was another beauty, who seemed somewhat reserved. On the sofa sat a bespectacled man reading a book, looking refined and scholarly. Fu Jinhuan looked up at Tao Qin. Could that beauty be Dr. Tao's girlfriend? She bit her lip, suddenly regretting coming. Tao Qin called the three playing games to a halt and started introductions, beginning with the short-haired woman, Zhu Nuo and Zhou Ximon, and Zhu Linghua on the sofa. They're my childhood friends. As for this other young lady, Zhu Nuo, who was sitting cross-legged on the floor operating a game controller, looked back at Fu Jinhuan with a smile. And this other great beauty is my friend, Yang Shexin. Tao Qin leaned in slightly and murmured near Fu Jinhuan's ear, this Miss Yang, who in my eyes isn't particularly sexy, insisted on coming with Zhu Nuo. I'm not familiar with her. Fu Jinhuan recalled how last night Zhou Xiyuan had repeatedly confirmed with her whether she was free tomorrow. She had instantly replied with 5 words, I can swap shifts. She guiltily reflected that she too had insisted on coming. On the balcony, Zhou Xiyuan was busy preparing the barbecue. Tao Qin, standing idly by, remarked casually, I heard from Nuonio today that you have your eye on Fu Jinhuan. Zhou Xiyuan, covered in ash from the grill, moved charcoal while replying, how should I put it? Jinhuan and I have known each other since high school. She was a grade below me. Every time I ran into her outside our classroom, she'd blink her big eyes and call me senior. So well-behaved. Is well-behaved bad? Tao Qin frowned, not understanding. No matter what you said to her, Fu Jinhuan would look at you with bright eyes, like a little kitten ready to nuzzle your palm at any moment. If her mother really gave her to him, forget about not wanting to give her shots every day. He'd protect her bottom and treasure her like a precious gem. It's not that well-behaved is bad, but she's almost too honest, probably because her parents are teachers, Zhou Ximon said, patting Tao Qin's shoulder with his dirty hand. Tao Qin didn't flinch and continued listening. Just think about it during our school days. Was it fun dating someone so straight-laced? For example, if you told her not to go home at night and to tell her mom she was staying at a friend's place, she'd just timidly shake her head. Tao Qin ran his tongue over his back teeth. So now you're pursuing this honest girl because, after experiencing everything, you realize this type is best. You get me? But of course, I like her. I wouldn't go after someone I'm not interested in, Zhou Ximon said, successfully getting the grill fired up. He looked up, puzzled. What's going on, bro? When my previous girlfriends were practically having catfights, you never said a word. Why are you suddenly concerned about my love life now? Tao Qin gave him a faint glance, hands in his pockets, and walked away, tossing back a remark. Playboy Zhou Xiyuan. Zhu Linghua came upstairs and ran into Tao Qin. Noticing the dirty handprint on Tao Qin's white t-shirt, he was surprised Tao Qin hadn't shoved Zhou Xiyuan's head into the barbecue grill. In the living room, Zhu Nuo and Yang Shexin were huddled together, chatting animatedly. Fu Jinhuan approached and asked, does Dr. Tao eat barbecue too? Logically, doctors who focus on health should avoid foods like barbecue altogether. Unable to resist, Zhu Nuo reached out and patted Fu Jinhuan's head as she leaned in. He doesn't eat it. The grill and charcoal were bought by Ximon last year. He had no place to store them at home, so he just moved them to King's place. Anyway, we drop by every now and then to freeload food and drinks. Tao Qin walked over, grabbed the back collar of Zhu Nuo's shirt, and said, and you have the nerve to say that? Go grill your own food. Zhu Nuo broke free from Tao Qin's grip and pulled Yang Shexin toward the balcony, ready to fend for themselves. Bellies weren't filled yet when dark clouds chased after the sun again. Soon, heavy rain came pouring down. Zhou Xiyuan turned on the speakers and started dancing at home. After tiring himself out, he collapsed on the sofa and discussed with Tao Qin, since none of us work tomorrow anyway, it's Sunday, how about we stay over tonight and keep the fun going tomorrow? Tao Qin glanced outside at the darkening sky, then turned to ask Fu Jinhuan for her opinion. Seeing the rain showed no sign of stopping, Fu Jinhuan nodded in agreement. Zhu Nuo, noticing Yang Shexin didn't refuse either, cheered, let's play mahjong. Don't mind them. I chose my friends poorly, Tao Qin said to Fu Jinhuan with a smile. Fu Jinhuan didn't know how to play, so Zhou Xiyuan volunteered to teach her. Thus, The four of them just made a table. Though he said he'd teach her, Zhou Shimon kept striking up conversations with Yang Shuxin. With Fu Jinhuan sitting between them, she truly experienced what it felt like to be on pins and needles, as teacher Li Shengru once described. Fu Jinhuan, come here. Tao Qin stood up and pushed his chair back. I don't feel like playing anymore. You take my place. Seats were swapped inexplicably, but Zhou Shimon didn't object at all. Instead, he became even more unscrupulous in chatting with Yang Shuxin. At the mahjong table, Zhu Nuo and Zhu Linghua exchanged glances. Wasn't Zhou Shimon supposed to be trying to woo his junior sister apprentice, Fu Jinhuan? Yet here he was, noisily cozying up to Yang Shuxin, clearly leaving Fu Jinhuan out in the cold. However, as Zhu Nuo's eyes darted around, she realized things might not be so simple. On the other side, Fu Jinhuan sat upright and proper. Tao Qin, seated closely beside her, leaned back in his chair, his long legs crossed due to the limited space. Fu Jinhuan kept glancing back at him from time to time. Each time, Tao Qin, who had been watching the tiles, would look up and meet her gaze. Fu Jinhuan picked up a tile and was about to discard it. She turned to look at Tao Qin, who shook his head from his reclined position. Fu Jinhuan swapped for another tile and looked back again. Tao Qin nodded. Her eyes instantly lit up, and she piously discarded the white tile in her hand. Is Zhou Shimon this guy using the pretext of pursuing his junior sister to actually help Tao Qin get into a relationship instead? By the time they finished at the mahjong table, Fu Jinhuan was nearly in tears. Dr. Tao, I promise I'll help you win it back tomorrow. Tao Qin looked surprised. You still want to play? Zhu Nuo yawned. Huan, you're not trying to lose all of Tao's money saved to get married, are you? Fu Jinhuan's big eyes filled with confusion. She glanced at Tao Qin, who appeared completely detached, and heard him say nonchalantly, at worst, she can just compensate me with one. A wife isn't something she can just compensate for. Dr. Tao is suspect of faking an accident to claim compensation. Besides, Dr. Tao didn't seem like someone that poor. He owned this whole small Western-style building by himself. Losing a few hundred or even 1,000 yuan shouldn't wipe out his marriage savings, right? Tao Qin seemed to read her mind and remarked softly and sadly, doctors don't earn high salaries. Well, that was true. Doctors' salaries aren't high. Losing occasionally is okay, but losing repeatedly adds up to a significant loss. A rare sense of competitiveness stirred in Fu Jinhuan. She took a few steps forward, looked up at him, and declared earnestly, I'll study online tonight. If we get another chance tomorrow, I'll win it back. I'm a quick learner. I usually pick things up fast. Ultimately, she still wanted to play. Tao Qin was both amused and exasperated. He really couldn't handle her serious, almost coquettish-like determination. He pushed his chair back in and dismissed everyone. All right. It's getting late. Everyone, head to your rooms and rest. The three of us girls can share one room. We'll squeeze in. Zhu Nuo arranged clearly. Linghua doesn't like being disturbed, so he gets a room alone. Xian can sleep hard on the living room sofa. Zhu Linghua pushed his glasses up his nose and stated in an indisputable manner, You're sharing a room with me. Who wants to share a room with you? Zhu Nuo glared at him. You barely say a word all night. And when you do, it's something easily misunderstood. Zhu Linghua, accustomed to this, calmly stuffed his winnings into Zhu Nuo's pocket and said lightly, rather than you sneaking into my room after everyone's asleep, it's better to just come in openly and sleep with me. Do as you like. Tao Qin said, then headed upstairs first. After a few steps, he turned back, reached out, and felt Fu Jinhuan's forehead. Come to my room later. Huh? Fu Jinhuan blinked. I think you have a fever, Tao Qin said, his eyes curving into a smile. Your cheeks are as red as two little persimmons. I have a thermometer and fever medicine in my room. Was it from blushing over the gossip? But her body temperature really was skyrocketing now. Zhu Nuo stood there dumbfounded. Tao Qin was actually using his charm to lure Fu Jinhuan. She felt deep sympathy for Zhou Shimon. However, as she pulled Zhu Linghua toward their room, she overheard Zhou Shimon inviting Yang Shuxin to play billiards tomorrow. Her newly overflowing compassion instantly vanished. Fool! Epilogue. The door was firmly closed. Fu Jinhuan hesitated for a long moment before finally reaching out to knock. Come in. 2 months ago, when she first saw Tao Qin at the hospital, his first words to her were also come in. Fu Jinhuan unconsciously swallowed and pushed the door open. Tao Qin was sitting on a lazy sofa by the bed, a laptop on his knees. The thermometer is on the table. The room's style was simple and elegant. Besides the lazy sofa, the only place to sit was the bed. Afraid of disturbing Tao Qin, Fu Jinhuan obediently sat on the edge of the bed, waiting for the 5-minute temperature reading. Tao Qin broke the silence. You and Shimon seem quite close. Joe Shimon is my senior brother, and we were in the same university town in college, but they weren't really that close. At least, he wasn't particularly close to her. Tao Qin closed his laptop and looked at her steadily. Do you like him? I used to. Back then, I thought he liked me too. I majored in ethnic dance in college, and he came to watch whenever I had a performance. Fu Jinhuan felt a bit uncomfortable under his gaze and pursed her lips before continuing. But the day before I planned to confess, he got together with a girl who studied ballet. After that, they lost contact. But recently, her senior brother Ray added her on WeChat, and they chatted occasionally. Tao Qin rubbed his temples. He's had countless girlfriends over the years. I really didn't know there was one who did ballet. Oh. Fu Jinhuan's attention was entirely on Tao Qin. He looked quite tired now. You're not jealous? Her reaction was too plain upon hearing about Zhou Xiwan's many girlfriends. None of the emotions anger, jealousy, sadness were there. A very bewildered question mark seemed to pop up above Fu Jinhuan's head. Before she could fully grasp the meaning behind his words, Tao Qin had already stood up, set the laptop aside, and walked over to her. Give me the thermometer. Fu Jinhuan took out the thermometer, checked it, and handed it to Tao Qin. 36, 2C. No fever. Sorry to trouble you, Dr. Tao. After performing surgery without rest, taking care of you at the hospital until late, sending you home, grilling skewers for you today, and even accompanying you in losing money, Tao Qin patted her head, then changed his tone. Fu Jinhuan, how have I treated you? Dr. Tao is a great doctor. Fu Jinhuan had already thought about what to write on the silk banner. No wonder he seemed tired beneath his gentleness that night at the hospital. He had just finished surgery and was about to head home when he unfortunately met me. No, a doctor wouldn't treat a patient like this. Tao Qin leaned close to Fu Jinhuan, who was sitting properly on the bed's edge. He hooked her chin, bent down, and gently bit her lower lip. It hurt a little, and Fu Jinhuan whimpered. Tao Qin let go and then gently pecked her lips again. A man doesn't treat a woman well for no reason. What do you think I want from you? Fu Jinhuan's hands gripped the bedsheet until it was wrinkled. Her whole body trembled, not daring to think about it. Repay with my body? He wants my body? She really couldn't bring herself to say that out loud. She had been somewhat worried after entering, but trusting Dr. Tao's character had given her enough sense of security to dare knock. Now, the realization hit her hard. This was the proper way for a man and a woman to be alone together in a room. One of Tao Qing's legs pressed against her, while the other knee rested on the bed. Seeing he was about to push her down, she immediately raised her hands to push against him. This is moving too fast. How about we date first and build some feelings? All right. Tao Qin stopped teasing her, stood up to let her sit properly. Seeing she was still in a daze and hadn't reacted, he added, Didn't you say you want to date me? I said all right. Fu Jinhuan, how did things develop like this? As she fled the room, she still found it incredible. When she entered, she was single. When she left, she had somehow gained a boyfriend. Back in the guest room, it was past midnight. Fu Jinhuan lay in bed and texted Tao Qin on WeChat. I'm Fu Jinhuan, Dr. Tao. I thought about it carefully. Dating should be based on liking each other first, leading to a series of activities. It shouldn't be just for the final step. Dr. Tao Qin, who said I don't like you? Dr. Tao Qin, seems I kissed you too lightly. You didn't feel the love. I'm Fu Jinhuan. Shy emoji. I'm Fu Jinhuan. Then when did you start liking me? Dr. Tao Qin, love's origin is unknown. Maybe it was when you showed me your lace underwear. Thought her phone fell and hit her face painfully. Love isn't easy. Huan sighed. So, in the end, Dr. Tao is lusting after my body, huh? Sigh. When she turned over and picked up her phone again, she noticed Tao Qin had posted a WeChat moment. A woman's intuition late at night is not to be underestimated. Fu Jinhuan held her breath and cautiously opened the moment. It wasn't a forwarded medical notice. This was Tao Qing's only original post. The first time you called me Tao Tao, this heart of mine was already restless. Extra Chapter 1. What's it like to have a doctor boyfriend? Your boyfriend could be so busy that halfway through a movie date, he gets urgently called back to the hospital. Over the past 6 months, Fu Jinhuan has been stood up countless times and has already become an understanding girlfriend. For example, today Tao Qin is on night duty. As soon as her classes ended, she rushed home to make a packed meal and brought it to the hospital. But then a car accident patient arrived at the hospital. After exchanging only a few words with her, Tao Qin hurried off to the operating room. The waiting time felt especially long. The meal gradually grew cold, and Fu Jinhuan grew drowsy as she waited. By the time the surgery ended, it was already past midnight. Tao Qin didn't expect her to still be there. She was now fast asleep, sprawled over his desk. Fu Jinhuan woke up as dawn was breaking and found herself squeezed onto the small bed in the break room with Tao Qin. As she turned over, Tao Qin also woke up. Don't come when I am on night duty from now on. You've been teaching dance classes all day. You must be exhausted. Go home and rest properly. Fu Jinhuan didn't agree. You're so busy. I want to spend more time with you. Why are you so sweet? So sweet it made his heart ache. Let me give you a kiss. Fu Jinhuan tilted her head up and gave Tao Qin a loud smooch. How about I shave you when we get up? When I called you yesterday morning, weren't you shaving? How did your beard grow back so fast? Tao Qin, a fast-growing beard is a sign of a mature man. All right then. Fu Jinhuan nuzzled against his chest and drifted back to sleep. She didn't know how much time had passed when she was woken by noise. Yawning, she went out to look and saw it was Zhou Xiwan making all the commotion. Who's more important, your bro or your girlfriend? My girlfriend, Tao Qin answered without hesitation. When Zhou Xiwan saw Fu Jinhuan emerge from the break room, he grew even angrier. If it weren't for your birthday coming up and Nuo and Ling Hua telling me to find you, I wouldn't have come at all. Tomorrow night, same place as always. Come if you want, or don't, I don't care. Having said his piece, Zhou Xiwan stormed out, slamming the door behind him. He didn't actually take his anger out on Fu Jinhuan. Is Shixiang okay? Ever since he found out about her relationship with Tao Qin a few months ago, Zhou Xiwan's social media had been filled daily with bitter posts about heartbreak. It was hard not to suspect that his feelings for Fu Jinhuan weren't entirely ordinary. Tao Qin shook his head. He's fine. He shows up like clockwork every month asking the same question, but he hasn't cut ties with me. He's just wrestling with himself. Ignore him. Zhou Xiwan's outburst reminded Fu Jinhuan that the next day was Tao Qin's 32nd birthday. She had almost forgotten. Being a girlfriend for the first time, she agonized over what gift to give her boyfriend that would uniquely express a girlfriend's deep affection. Early the next morning, Fu Jinhuan went to the mall and bought a specially designed outfit. Then she bought a bunch of snacks at the supermarket and added one more item while waiting in line at the checkout. Tao Qin had an impromptu meeting at the hospital, so Fu Jinhuan went to the small house first to prepare for the birthday celebration. After setting up the birthday cake, she began wrapping the gifts. The southern city in January carried a chill, and rooms without heating were just as cold as outside. After taking a shower, Fu Jinhuan changed into her new clothes and felt freezing, so she had to put on a down jacket over it. When Tao Qin got home, he felt something was off. As he ate cake, Fu Jinhuan sat beside him fidgeting, clearly distracted. Plus, she was wearing a bulky winter jacket indoors, like a little lamb waiting to be slaughtered. When Tao Qin discovered a small blue box on the nightstand, everything became clear. Seeing that he hadn't come out of the bedroom, Fu Jinhuan slowly followed him in. A few days earlier, Tao Qin had added a sofa to the bedroom. On his birthday, he peeled off her down jacket on that very sofa and whispered, "Wife." Fu Jinhuan felt her bones melt. Tao Qin wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her into his embrace, and chuckled softly. "How are you so soft, Maybe I've gained some weight recently," Fu Jinhuan thought absent-mindedly. Tao Qin turned over and pressed her into the sofa. As she was kissed into a daze, Fu Jinhuan felt herself growing cooler and cooler. Suddenly, she blurted out, "Should we turn on the air conditioner?" Tao Qin, "Never mind. Let's just cover up with the blanket." Extra Chapter 2. Tao Qin stepped out of the bathroom after his shower to find the bedding piled up on the bed and Fu Jinhuan nowhere in sight. He hurried out and saw that Fu Jinhuan, who had been crying and complaining about being tired just half an hour earlier, was now standing in front of the kitchen wine rack holding 2 bottles of red wine. Hearing footsteps, Fu Jinhuan stumbled toward Tao Qin. "Tao Tao, they said if you're scared of pain, drinking helps. But my head is spinning like crazy right now. What good is drinking after the fact?" Tao Qin took the bottles from her hands. They were almost empty and tilted his head back to finish the remaining wine. "I don't have experience," Fu Jinhuan slurred, holding her head. "I'll never trust Jihu or Tiba users again. It's clearly because you didn't do enough research." Tao Kin thought as he tossed the bottles aside and carried her back to the bedroom. They had barely lain down for a few minutes when Jinhuan sat bolt upright. My head hurts. His phone vibrated under the pillow. Tao Kin massaged Jinhuan's head with one hand and answered the call with the other. Why aren't you here yet? What time is it, bro? Zunuo exploded over the phone like a firecracker. Tao Kin had genuinely forgotten about their plans. He looked down at Jinhuan, who seemed even more alert after drinking, covered the phone's microphone, and asked her, "If you can't sleep, how about I take you out to have some fun?" Considering he'd also had some wine, he simply called a DD car to pick them up at the door. Zhu Nuo called one after another, but Tao Kin ignored the calls. When he couldn't get through to Tao Kin, Zhu Nuo called Jinhuan instead. "Have you guys left yet or not?" Drunk Jinhuan was clingier than usual, nestling in his arms and chattering non-stop. After answering the call, she thought seriously for a moment and replied, "We just passed 3 traffic lights. We need to turn at 5 more intersections to get there." Then she felt a wave of nausea, casually tossed the phone onto the seat, and covered her mouth, wanting to throw up. A moment later, she wrapped her arms around Tao King's neck, her eyes wide open. "Tao Tao, am I pregnant?" Tao Kin held her by the waist, listening to her nonsense, helpless against a drunk. Before he could respond, she continued on her own. "Then I'll have 2, a son and a daughter. A perfect pair." Now it was Tao King's turn to have a headache. He decided to let it go, no point arguing with the drunk. After all, it was just imaginary pregnancy. She could imagine as many as she wanted, as long as she was happy. Jinhuan grew even more excited, leaning on Tao King's shoulder and continuing, "It'd be best to have an older brother and a younger sister. Then when they go to school, they won't be lonely. The brother should be like you, and the sister should be like you too. Why should they both be like me? Because I like you." Tao King's heart melted. He kissed her forehead. Drunk love was unbelievably sweet. "Tao Tao, Jinhuan asked cautiously, "You can't drink when you're pregnant." "I got drunk today, will it hurt the baby?" So the drunkard actually knew she was drunk. Tao Kin sighed sympathetically. It doesn't happen that fast. He longed to build a family with her, but he wanted to take it step by step, integrating her into his life, falling in love, getting married, then having children. Oh, Jinhuan understood what he meant by not that fast and felt inexplicably disappointed. She wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing her face into the crook of his neck. "Tao Tao is a doctor. If Tao Tao says it's not, then it's not." Tao Kin gently stroked her head and whispered sweet words into her ear. "I love you, wife." "Tao Tao, I'm shy." Jinhuan buried her face in his shoulder. A moment later, she whispered, "Even if I'm shy, I have to say it, I love you too." The phone on the seat had gone dark. Zunuo clutched his phone and wailed, "Who can handle this? Not even a tough guy could resist, let alone Kin. If Huan acted this cute with me, I'd definitely bend into a winding mountain road." Zhu Linghua glanced meaningfully at Zunuo's stomach, a sly smile curling at the corner of his mouth. He pushed his glasses up with his right hand, hiding the glint in his eyes. Zunuo shivered, sensing danger. He turned and saw Zhou Xiwan waving a pair of scissors. "Hey, why are you cutting up Tao Tao's birthday hat?" "Tao Tao, my foot. I brought this on myself," Zhou Xiwan grumbled, full of regret and frustration. "The nurses keep flocking to him, and he likes peace and quiet. So when I went to the hospital to see him, I casually mentioned to the nurses, who were sweetly calling him doctor, Tao, that Tao Kin has a little wife who calls him Tao Tao." Zhu Nuo laughed unkindly. "So you're the matchmaker who brought them together?" Zhou Xiwan turned away awkwardly. "Stealing my love is an unforgivable grudge.